see if this works. I think we're live.
Are we live?
I think we did it.
Nice.
Let's see.
Do you need me to wave or do something?
Entertain the potential people.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't confirm are there or not.
Entertain them. You should have left me something to juggle. And then I would just juggle for them. But I'm afraid to grab random equipment from your desk or a knife and start juggling that.
Oh, it looks like it's actually working. This is fantastic.
Nice.
Okie dokie. I'm coming over.
Okay.
No need for juggling. Although, I think I have juggling balls somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, actually, I know exactly where they are. They're in there.
In there.
Yeah.
This wonderfully colorful thing.
Yeah, it's in one of the ones with all the note cards. The green one, the orange one, top orange one, or the purple one. Hello, everybody. It's so great to have you here for Self-Care Sunday. My name is Zach Valenti. This is my home and my channel. If you don't know who I am, I wear a lot of hats, mostly on the internet. This is my my roommate and good friend, Andrew Ippoliti. Less of a roommate now than ever, but still a roommate in spirit, at the very least. Delighted to be back with all of you. Hello, Leslie, Amir, Sarah P, Mitzrayim, Benjamin Theodore, Nadia P, Delancey C. So great to have y'all here. Mitzrayim, it does sound like maybe you missed the audio drama class Q&A last week. For those of you who don't know, I got together with my writing partners, Gabrielle and Sarah, and made a really insane online course called Audio Fiction 101, where we sort of rounded up all the things that we've learned making audio dramas, and put that at audiofiction101.com. I think I said audiofiction101.
Okay, you could. I think so.
Yeah.
I think you said audiofiction101.com.
Yeah. Anyway, we've been doing Q&As every so often live for those students, and that was fun. Although the first one we had some serious tech problems. Like if you thought we had tech problems just now, we had really bad tech problems that first day. Yeah. One of these days it's going to go live while I'm being like bitter and foul at software and hardware. But until then, we have very little planned for today, except to practice self-care in the company of each other. Tiffy is sleeping on this pile of blankets next to us. I don't know if you can hear her little kitty snores. She's doing exceptionally well for the ripe old age of apparently 18, maybe, is the latest estimate on her age. Breathing is increasingly difficult, but such is the life of an elderly cat. Lorado asks, how is everyone this week? And I'd be curious to know. I'd also be curious to know where everyone is this week. Also, shout out to everybody who's catching up on this not live. How are you this week?
I'm good. I feel like I've been very energetic, running to catch trains in a way that I haven't in the past.
Really?
Yeah. But I think that's good, because then it gives me like some extra running time and feeling a little bit more fit and energetic. Like 7 flights of stairs are now nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you get exercise aside from running from thing to thing?
No, not really.
Do you run between a lot of things, or would you say?
I'd say there's at least one instance per day of like, I need to run to get somewhere to be on time.
Of like 5 minutes of running, 10 minutes of running?
Oh, not that much. I'm like a sprint until I'm out of breath, and then I walk really slow until I catch my breath, and then I check
sprint again.
Yeah.
You
exactly.
check your watch, feel the anxiety course through your veins, and sprint again.
Exactly.
Nice. Sounds familiar.
Yeah. It's a good way to exercise, too. I think that's like the secret. Like, it really gets your heart going, more so than just like, I'm going to run or jog at a leisurely pace.
But they say that, right? Like, interval training is like a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd imagine just like the added anxiety gives your heart a little bit of an extra workout. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, it's lovely to have you here for Self-Care Sunday.
Thank you.
See how everybody's doing in the chat. Sounds like people are stressed, honestly. Delaney C., huge test to study for, finally taking a break. Well, enjoy the break. Jake Nichols, I've been meaning to write you. Thank you so much for the sweet birthday present that you got me. One second.
Can you show it?
Yeah, I can. For anybody that knows, I love Mr. Rogers, and Jake Nichols sent this really sweet Mr. Rogers pop doll, and he's actually had a friend, because Kathleen got this for my, I guess my birthday last year, or I forget the occasion, but yeah, Mr. Rogers has been hanging out on the shelf with Mr. Rogers. And it's just been a little bit insane. But thank you so much, Jake. I really appreciate that. Can't have enough Mr. Rogers.
Get a couple more and you can call it Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah, that's funny. Literally make a neighborhood of Mr. Rogers. Let's see. Benjamin Theodore, glad to hear you're okay. It sounds like people are doing good. Because I'm not sure stress is bad. I know too much of it is too much. But I find a good balance is healthy.
Yeah.
What's your relationship to stress?
I think sometimes it's motivating. I mean, I don't want to live under constant stress, but I also don't want to live free from it. I feel like I get too bored if there's not something that's challenging or that causes me some sort of anxiety or to like push myself more. And I think stress is an indication of that. I think it's sometimes the reaction to it, which is hard or challenging or like more problematic than the stress itself. You know, like if I react in a negative way towards it and it's bringing me down, then that's not good. But if it pushes me through something, then I find that that's good and that's what I strive for. But a lot of times it's hard to keep the goal in mind, and it's just like stress, anxiety, all of this other stuff is bearing down on me, and remembering to get through that and take the appropriate steps is harder to do.
Yeah, I am reminded hearing that of my health class in 9th grade where we learned about eustress and distress, that not all stress is the same. And that eustress is healthy. You know, like the stress involved in responsibly practicing to run a marathon can be really beneficial, whereas like the distress of like, you know, systemic oppression and like just like, you know, I would say like, you know, economic degradation, you know, just like things that aren't healthy or like, you know, distress, and we should eliminate as much distress as possible and encourage as much eustress as possible. Which I was like, it's a good thing to teach a 9th grader.
Yeah, it's very useful, especially at that age.
Sounds like somebody's grandma is doing better. Jake, I'm so glad to hear that. And Victoria Frey, you cannot be too late to Self-Care Sunday. With the exception of not practicing self-care independent of this live stream on a Sunday. But don't beat yourself up over that either. That's not necessary.
You can always take a self-care Monday if you need to.
Yeah. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. He always knows what to say. Oh man, it's so wonderful to have you all here. Octopi in the Sky, first time! Octopi in the Sky. That just makes me think of the flying spaghetti monster. Do you know that?
No.
I think, what is the flying? I feel like it's like an atheist joke.
Huh.
But it's also just a funny image.
Yeah.
Of a literally flying spaghetti monster. I wish I could put this on the screen right now, but
yeah.
It's,
the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
It's dumb. It's silly. I don't know what it is, but it stuck in my brain. And something about octopi in the sky, because it kind of looks like an octopus.
Yeah.
Like it's got like a big head and then all the little legs. I'm gonna get the post-it note that is the theme
Okay.
that you inadvertently brought up by reading it and saying you liked it.
Yeah. I think this is one of my favorite out of context post-it notes.
So Linda is our other roommate or former roommate's mother, who Linda Lung, who stayed with us for a bit. Let me just make sure you're in focus. Oh boy, just making a mess.
Do you need me to stand still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stiller. Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
Great. Okay. So please help yourself, Linda. This was originally on a packet of tortilla chips. But I didn't want to throw it away after we finished the tortilla chips. And it's been a wonderful thing to have on my monitor to remind me to please take care of myself. Because I'm my own first line of defense. And I think that's the idea that I'm excited to share is like, we're all at some level our own first line of defense. And some of the, most important ways that I've helped myself is to ask for help from others when I've needed it. And it's something that as a people pleaser, I'm like very unlikely to do all the time. But I think I've learned over the years, thanks to many amazing teachers and, including my parents. And, I think I've learned a lot living with you over the years. So I'm curious what caught your eye about this, and I think we'll get into what you do when you please help yourself.
So, the reason why I caught my eye was because I knew it was Linda always comes and she buys food and leaves it for us and is like, please help yourself, please help yourself. So I knew that's where that note was from. Right. And then I was like, it's on your monitor. And having it in that context is really great. It's just a reminder to like, help yourself. Like, you don't need anyone else. Like, there's all of this stuff here. You can help yourself, and like whatever you need to do, you're capable of it.
Right, even if it's going to therapy, even if it's asking somebody to like come lend a hand with like I don't know, John was just moving and I wasn't available to help do all the things, and so he enrolled 2 other people in his community to come and just make it happen. It was beautiful to see this like little productivity party. And at one level, it's like it reminds me of the "Lean on Me" song. My favorite lyric out of it is like, "No one can fill those of your needs that you don't let show." And so, while I think there is a lot that we can do for ourselves, like in the privacy of our aloneness, which I also think is valid, like making time for just sitting down and doing nothing, or doing what you might call meditating or whatever, self-care activities one does alone, like journaling and stuff. And I know for me, one of the big things that I'm taking on these days is sleep. I'm reading a book called Why We Sleep, and I'm learning that all the things that I complain about, like, my tiredness and my crummy memory and like, it sounds like the best performance enhancing drug you can take is sleep. So I'm looking forward to reporting back on that next month.
Yeah, I have to say, I completely agree with that. That sleep is super important. I used to, so I think what my sleep schedule was like. It would be like work till 2, go to sleep, get up at 6, work, and then just like keep doing that.
There's something attractive about that, but I find it unsustainable. Can you keep it up?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I could, but then when I looked at the actual performance, it's like...
You're like dozing off.
Yeah, exactly. So it felt like I was keeping it up, but performance-wise, I really wasn't. Like, I wasn't as sharp or as fast or like had as effective ideas. So then several months ago, I just completely stopped using an alarm. And that has changed. I just like sleep as much as I need to. Unless I have an early morning appointment that I don't want to be late for, then I'll set an alarm. But most of the time, it's just no alarm, sleep as much as you need, and then there's a huge difference in performance in terms of like mentally what I'm capable of, how long my attention span lasts, the things that I can keep in memory without having to write down and like manage that way. So from my own experience, there's a big reason to sleep.
Cool. I'm curious, what time are you getting to sleep? Like, because I found when I've gotten my sleep in order that it mostly comes down to how I behave after 4 p.m. Do I drink coffee? Do I keep screens on? And, you know, I would say, like, that's, like, around, like if I turn my screens off at 8 and haven't had coffee since before 4 p.m., I find myself exhausted by, like, 10.
Wow.
Or like 11, like latest, and we'll usually go to sleep. And when I was doing that like a couple years ago, I would wake up naturally like first thing in the morning, like 5:30 without an alarm. And it was glorious. And then I had a late night thing at Landmark, and I just got totally thrown off. So I'm curious, like do you find that there's some rituals or practices or something that you practically use to make it work, or do you just like work until you're tired and then fall asleep and then like wake up whenever you feel like it?
It's more of the second one where I just like work until I'm tired, fall asleep, and then wake up.
Okay, cool.
Because like there have been days where it's like it's 1. I know I should go to sleep, but I'm not tired at all, and then all of a sudden it's 3. I guess I'll go to sleep now.
Yeah.
And so I don't have that fixed sort of schedule. And I guess I'm lucky enough that I'm in a situation where I don't need to have a fixed schedule, and I don't.
You work at a startup. It's the context, right?
Yeah. So there's only maybe like 2 days every 2 weeks where I have to be there early at a certain time for a meeting. And that gives me the flexibility. I know that other people I know have a very strict ritual, and that helps them sleep. So, and when I had a ritual, like when I was in school, that I found that was pretty good. But when you want to have more variety and not follow that ritual all the time, it can be a little bit hard. You know, like how do you do something late at night or go to an event or something and still keep that ritual?
Cool. Emir is asking if we find sleeping between certain times makes a difference. It sounds like they find staying up later and sleeping in later just seems to work a bit better for them. I definitely feel more naturally inclined to that. Like, I get rambunctious at bedtime is what I think they said about my mom when she used to go to sleepaway camp, and I feel like I resemble that remark. And then I hate myself when I have to wake up in the morning because I'm just tired all day. But like, I can't say though that I feel like a night owl because I remember falling asleep super early and waking up super early and feeling amazing. So I don't know. Do you find any patterns?
I find that there are certain environmental conditions that impact my sleep. So it's like in the summer, since it tends to be, depending upon the way heating works out, I tend to sleep better when it's cooler. So sometimes I will capitalize on like rainy, cool days and bank some sleep then. Or if the neighborhood is loud, like let's say there's a party that the neighbors are throwing at like midnight, it might not end till 2 or 3. I find that's hard to sleep during those times, so I'd rather stay up, like get something done, have some fun, and then sleep later in the morning. Like basically I try to sleep when my environment allows me to, or when like it's optimal based on the environment, because like a lot of times we can control our environment or like we can impact it, but there are certain things that are just totally out of our control.
Like trucks.
Yeah.
We get a lot of trucks in this block. So what else would you say that you do just to sort of loop back to the please help yourself idea. I'm just curious if there's anything else that comes to mind that is a real difference maker in your life.
I think that sometimes there's an aspect of like not worrying about it myself. And
Not worrying about what? Yourself.
like I think one of the hardest things is when we're feeling down or stressed or like are in just some sort of troubling mood, that it's easy to think that we should be a certain way or that like we shouldn't be in that sort of mood. And I find that the easiest way to help myself is to just be like, no, you're fine in that mood. Don't worry about it.
So choosing the mood you're in, even when it's not great.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you do that for somebody who's watching and being like, that sounds like easier said than done. But I feel like I've had the grace to like discover that for myself. But I'm like curious what else you might say.
Yeah, like I think there's something like you can be angry about being angry, or you can just be angry at the thing, and then it's like, wait, I'm angry at this. Can I do anything about it? No, but I can still be angry at it, and like I can do something or
And
not.
why be angry at yourself?
Yeah.
On top of that initial reaction of anger, which, yeah, somebody said something once. I forget exactly where I heard it. It was probably at Landmark, but you're not your feelings. They're something you have. And whenever I'm really in an emotion, I hear that play in my head, and it makes it a little less intense. At least it makes me a little less hard on myself, because usually I'm just feeling guilty for how I'm feeling. And I need to remind myself that it's like feel your feelings. It's okay to feel your feelings. And Charlotte got me a mug upstairs that has a bunch of different smiley faces of all different ethnicities, and it says it's okay to feel your feelings. It's just like, and there's like smiley faces and sad faces and also everything in between. Faces that look like they don't know what an emotion is because maybe they're just like plugged into an outlet. Like, I don't know, just like they're like all sorts of different faces. It's fun to just like sort of find yourself on it. Any particular moment. Before we started streaming, you were telling me a story about imagination. And how imagination is something that helps you. And I'm curious, we didn't finish it because we wanted to go live. I wanted to know if you could recreate that.
Sure.
Now that we're here together.
Yeah. You basically what Zach is talking about is we were talking about like other ways to help yourself, and I think one of the biggest things that helps me get through whatever it is I'm dealing with, and even helps me in terms of being creative, is my imagination. And it can just take me to so many different places and help me see so many different things. And it's interesting the things that we pick out from our imagination and assume to be the truth. Because there's a lot of stuff that, like, honestly, we don't know if it's true. Like, maybe you're frowning at me because you're mad at me, or maybe you're frowning at me because you've got an itch up here and you just want to, like, move your eyebrow.
Maybe it's just my face.
Or that. So, there's a whole bunch
of frown.
I don't know, I felt like that was kind of like a Popeye kind of look.
You were saying.
So I like really saw a great example of how that plays out when a coworker showed me a scene from a movie called Joan of Arc. And in it, this
is an old school, like, classic Hollywood film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least I think it is. I'm not good with movies.
Is it The Passion of Joan of Arc?
I don't know. I think it was just Joan of Arc.
Oh, that one's hardcore. Yeah, maybe it wasn't that. Yeah, that one's hardcore.
Yeah, I don't think it's that one. Movie, maybe. That one.
This
I
one,
think.
The Messenger.
That looks like the. That looks like the girl that was in the movie.
Okay.
So there's a particular scene before she's about to get executed. And my coworker sets up what's happened, and basically the movie starts with this girl skipping through the field, lying down and coming across this sword. And she takes that sword as a sign that she has to then go and lead this war. And in this particular scene, she's about to be executed, and this man appears who we can only assume to be God. And he talks to her, and he's like, "It's very interesting that you took the sword as a symbol, that, like, the way you thought the sword appeared in that field was that it was a sign from the heavens for you to start this war." When there's lots of other explanations. Maybe someone dropped it. Maybe someone was looking to get rid of it. Maybe two guys were fighting and one of them dropped it. But of all the things to choose, you pick, this is a sign for me to go and fight a war. And I think a lot of times our brains behave in that way, where it's like, what's the thing that's craziest and will drive me insane, but maybe it's kind of possible, as opposed to just looking and saying like, oh, yeah, some dude probably dropped that sword.
I love that. Do you have an example recently of how imagination makes a difference in your own imagination? And the answer can be no.
I mean, the examples that come to mind for me are all technical work-related stuff. I feel like on a more general level, anything within a relationship is very fertile ground for my imagination to kind of run wild and think that, like, things that aren't actually happening are happening in a certain way. But that, like, I feel like that's one of the things that I try to avoid is in those situations, like, deal with facts, as opposed to your imagination's interpretation of the facts. And then when creating stuff, then you should deal with facts, but you can play with them in a much more open and expansive environment than you can if you're just, like, stuck in this little X, Y, and Z have to happen.
Cool. I'm so curious to see what somebody writes to say what we're talking about for Eve Sicardi. Eve Sicardi, welcome. It's great to have you here. Nobody's answering. I'll just say we have this post-it note from our former roommate who actually moved out this morning. Jonathan Lung, his mother Linda. Please help yourself. This was on a snack food that was to be shared with the house, but it now lives on my monitor because it's, I think, a sweet reminder to be my own first line of defense. And so that's sort of what kicked off the conversation, and we've been taking the scenic route around this theme.
So what do you do to help yourself?
What do I do to help myself? I think that there are a number of things that I go to immediately when I feel like I haven't been or am in need of taking care beyond just, like, maintenance level, and I think usually it's putting back in place just the basic maintenance things, like, am I eating things that are not all, like, processed garbage? Am I, like, getting enough hydration? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I get moving, like, some moderate amount, like that's above zero, like, you know, like 20 minutes of like, you know, something that will get me into the ballpark of sweating for 30 minutes, 20 minutes 3 times a week, something like that. So there's that category of things. And I feel like recently I've been, as I mentioned, like looking at sleep and feeling like that's been a real, like needing something to change because I just feel so tired. And it's just like not gone away from eating better, exercising more. And so it's like, oh, maybe it's sleep. But you know, one of the things that I've been experimenting with lately that is different from all those is jamming and making music, which has been a real joy. And I think that one of the things that's hard about like, and first world problem about like getting to do something that you love for your work is you can lose some of the love for it. Like, I think doing video professionally for, you know, many years has made me less excited to on the weekends make YouTube videos, because I spend all day, you know, 5 days a week in this software. Like, I'd like to not be in the software. Generally, like I think being creative on the computer and having to use the computer to make money has made me less excited to use the computer in my downtime for fun, which is now opening up new avenues. I'm like, oh, there's like ways to make music that don't involve my Mac like desktop environment. Like, there are ways to write that don't involve like, you know, just something that has an internet connection. And so yes, I think this rambly answer is summing up to health basics, play, and like making time for joy, and getting the fuck away from some computers for a time, which I'm not super reliable for. That last one I find. I'm a junkie with these things, and it's just, you know, it's so stimulating. There's so much opportunity all the time. It can be really hard to put down. So it's been nice to take some intentional space.
Yeah. I also noticed that there's a lot of people in exam time. And I'm wondering if there was anything any way that you would help yourself during exam time.
Gummy bears. No. That was not healthy. How many gummy bears I used to eat during exam time in high school. And then college, I traded it in for terrible, terrible energy drinks.
I mean, at least you're no longer committing genocide, so, like, that's good.
On gummy bears?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Man, the things that they would do to my digestive system, I think it was at least equal. But yes, it's good to leave the jelly people to their jelly society. Evie Hirschman, enjoy your sleep. So great to have you here. And it's a privilege to get to make these. This is so easy to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Just like talk. Oh, let's see. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I got was from my dad, when I was learning to study more, and it was never study for longer than an hour and a half. Like, take a 30-minute break in between with something completely unrelated. And like, yeah, that was it. That was the big thing that I got from my dad. And what I'm learning now is, what I'm learning now is getting good sleep makes the practice that you do more valuable. Like, your memory will be better of it. And, you know, so studying for 1.5 hours and then getting sleep is going to be better than studying for 8 hours and getting no sleep. Even though you studied more and might get more information in that time, you'll probably retain less of it, is what I've been learning. So
Yeah.
I see some people with the what is this, the Pomodoro technique. Emir with the 25 blocks of time followed by 5-minute breaks does wonders for concentration. And I can +1 on that, and there are other variations of it that Bas Nephilim is talking about. It sounds like. Oh yeah, that's funny. No, right. 52 and 7. Yeah, I've never heard of that one, but yeah, I think the idea is like after an hour and a half, like the attention sort of goes down, and this is for studying, not for working. There are certain kinds of work I find that you can do for 3 hours, but I sort of tap out after 3 hours, no matter what I'm working on.
Yeah, I agree. For me, it's like 3 hours. It's kind of like after at that point, even if it's hanging out with people, it's like I need something to switch up in my environment.
Right, 100%, 100%. Grad school program definitely promoted unhealthy sleep habits, and if you took time to your work will suffer if you don't take a break. But it's like, but then your work suffers if you don't take a break. I don't know. I think that I definitely have been guilty of falling prey to the kind of culture of masochism that we have. That's like around like, oh, I'm on no sleep today. I'm doing I'm like pushing through like this sort of like muscling through, kind of like getting points for for being hard on yourself. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've run into that.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of revered might be too strong of a word, but there's some amount of like praise that people get from doing things that are potentially, if not already proven to be harmful to themselves, to get ahead and fulfill some other goal, instead of being given that praise for taking care of themselves. Like if you go out drinking and then go drive home, like that's bad. If you don't sleep and then drive, it's like you'll be performing the same as that drunk person, but
we don't talk about it that way.
Exactly. Right. We talk about it as if like, oh, good for you for like putting in that extra effort.
Right. Wow. Burnout is indeed a bastard. I like that Google's like AI bot was like, you sure you want to publish this? I was like, yeah. So I think we're gonna switch over and do a little meditation, but first, I wonder if anybody has any questions about meditation, what it is, what just contextual before we do any like actual, talking, I want to make sure that we have time to talk about it before we do it, because I think that I definitely was guilty of beating myself up and calling it meditation, and that's not what we're going to be doing. So I don't know. Do you have any questions about meditation before we do like a brief exercise? And we'll let any questions trickle in as people write here.
Well, could you give us some background, like a little bit more context? So it's, like we're going to be doing an exercise.
Yeah. So I'm like not exactly sure how to talk about meditation anymore because, like most words, there are multiple definitions, and we all have different images in our head about these things, and so there's like at some level what we're about to do is an exercise, but I'm less interested in the meditation exercise as I used to be. I feel like there's this like world of meditation that now exists, especially in the popular culture because of apps like Headspace and Calm that are wonderful resources for stress reduction. And then there's like this maybe less practical conversation about meditation that's associated with like certain like contemplative religions that are less like secular based and more like some people might call them woo woo or and there can be sort of this like kind of cult of personality like like have you achieved something like enlightenment or magical powers or something? You know, there's like that sort of like school, and it's like I find much more value in the practical stress reduction stuff than that conversation. But I have this new sort of I'm like looking at the whole world of meditation newly, listening to this guy Jiddu Krishnamurti or Jay Krishnamurti. He's got a bunch of archival videos on YouTube, and it's like it's not an experience. And I think like he talks about meditation in this poetical way where it's like sort of what's left when we let go of everything else that we carry around, like um, our conflicts and concerns and considerations, and there's just this like it's one thing to talk about peace, but that's just a word, and like actually experiencing sort of a depth of calm within oneself as meditation, but it can't necessarily be rehearsed like with like the way he's talking about it, like you can sort of repeat a word to yourself and cause a calm reaction, which is mantra meditation, and that works, but you're also hypnotizing yourself and at some level maybe making yourself dull in the process of that, as much as it might make you less dull than watching oodles and oodles and oodles of television. And it's interesting, like so I've sort of just been navigating the conversation about meditation with all these different people that I listen to, like Jiddu Krishnamurti, B. Alan Wallace, I think his name is. He's a Buddhist practitioner. He's very deeply practiced and studied in very like traditional techniques, which is very different from what Krishnamurti talks about, which is much more poetical and sort of like not trying to get somewhere over time. Whereas B. Alan Wallace talks about, no, if you dedicate yourself to this practice, in time things will begin to open. But I think they're kind of talking about the same thing, but they're coming at it so differently. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. What are you getting from this? Because I'm not sure whether or not I'm making sense.
There's like meditation seems like there's a more it's not just one view. People have multiple views on it, and so when talking about it to others, people will come in with a preconceived notion of like what it is, and it has different sort of implementations and different like end results, if you will, and different ways of happening, which will put you in varied states.
Perhaps. And I think, yes, I think that's like, yeah, I think you were listening. And I'm not sure that's what I am exactly trying to say about it. And I think that at the end of the day, there's only so much you can talk about meditation that has any value, because part of the beauty of meditation is what arises when we go beyond our words. And I know that for me, I live so much in my words, and like my head is real noisy. And in learning about meditation, I've learned that that's not true for everyone, and that it came with some amount of practice, but I think it's really more an unlearning, an unconditioning of constant, incessant thinking. And the trap that I've gotten into in the past is then thinking that thoughts are bad and it's better to have a quiet mind, and then being in conflict with myself for not having that, and then making meditation this terrible fight where I'm just like hitting myself with my eyes closed, looking spiritual AF, but actually just being this like miserable person who's just like trying to achieve something the way that somebody would go to the gym to lift weights, but you wouldn't do that for like a week and expect to be like ripped. And so like why do I sit down to meditate and like have a noisy head and feel like this shit doesn't work? And so I guess I've been thinking about like how to talk about meditation with groups again as I think about doing more Project Uplift stuff into the fall, and I just don't want to leave people with an image that it is actually having no thoughts at all, or it is like attaining some magical state. I think that there is a certain amount of like there are different dimensions to ourselves, and I think that I've found for myself I spend a lot of time working on my intellectual life, my identity, my life, my art, my I'm thinking constantly, and focused on that. And I think that there's a lot that I've like achieved in that area, but then I neglect my body in different ways, and don't feel into myself fully, and I'm like really focused up here like a laser beam in my frontal cortex, but I don't spend nearly as much time in the rest of my nervous system. Um, and rather than take this sort of like aggressive like self-improvement addiction approach to like fix myself, I've found a lot of value in navigating the conversation of meditation. I can't tell you whether or not I'm meditating because there's too many definitions. I don't know if I'm doing it right, and I'm tired of trying to do that right. But I found a way. I've found various ways to just come back home into the present moment, and I think that that's what I'd like to invite us all to do now. Do you have any questions before we get started, or anything that like stood out for you in any of that? Like, I'm curious what you heard and if you have questions.
I don't have questions, but I think the thing that you're emphasizing is to focus on the present moment, more so than any other perception that there is. It's like being aware of yourself and your existence now,
Mm.
in a way that our thoughts can focus on our existence in the past, or our thoughts can focus on our existence in the future and what could be. We can just focus on now, and experience that existence.
And it's perfectly normal in this moment of now to notice your mind flying off into the future or digging back into the past. And when I was making life much harder for myself, which continues to happen, but I'm getting, I think, more facile at noticing it, and then it sort of dissolves, was when I would notice it and then like get mad or feel guilty or be upset with myself. So yeah, I'm curious just to see if anybody's written any questions about that. Have I come across pranic healing before? I've heard of prana. I don't know if there's specifically, I haven't heard of specifically pranic healing. But yeah, we're going to transition into finding a comfortable seat, whatever that means for you. And that could mean lying down on the floor. That could mean, standing up, walking around, whatever's comfortable. And then just notice what it's like to be you right now. Feeling the weight of your body against whatever you're touching. Maybe your feet on the floor, butt on your seat. If you want to take a deep breath in and out, you're welcome to. It's not required. Sometimes it feels nice. If you notice any tension, notice how it changes as you notice it. And keep breathing. I I find that simply scanning down from the top of my head through my torso and down through the legs to the feet, the simple act of scanning brings some relaxation to any tight areas. There's no right way to be here right now. There's no wrong way to feel into your body and see what you notice. Thanking any thoughts that might be arising, thanking them for sharing. If you find yourself drifting off, that's okay. Your body will take the sleep it needs if you let it. If you want to keep your energy up, you can crack your eyes open a little, but try to keep your gaze somewhat unfocused. You can begin to include other sensations if you want more of a challenge. might be able to notice the pulse in the center of your chest from where your heart's beating. And if you can notice your pulse there, see where else you might be able to notice it. Arms and legs, hands and feet. I find that keeping the pulse in view, in mind, generally keeps things more grounded. Letting yourself just be easy. Not needing to get anywhere. Not needing to be a certain way. Just attending to right now. In your body, wherever you are in the world. Beginning to wiggle the fingers and toes. If you've closed your eyes, you can flutter them open in your own time. Coming back if you went anywhere. You can keep this sensitivity to what it's like to be you with you into the rest of your day. What was that like for you?
calming and physically sort of grounding. I've never felt my pulse as a echo of sorts from the back of the chair, which I noticed that for the first time, which is kind of interesting. Normally I feel it everywhere else, but for the first time I was like, oh, that's an echo from the chair. So, yeah.
You felt your pulse, like, at that point of contact.
Yeah, like back here where my back was touching the chair. And it was very enjoyable to have cute Tiffy snoring noises in the background.
It was really cute. I hope she's not suffering. Cool. Yeah.
How was that for you?
It's always a trip to do the guided thing because there's like half your mind's on the clock. But I feel like there were points where I just really dropped in to rest and doing nothing and, just being, with the sensations and not with the words, which is always a real source of energy. It sort of feels like stretching, but on the inside. When you get like a really good stretch in, it's like you find more space in your body. It feels like that, but just internal. Got a question here. When thoughts of work and things around you come up, and the things around you come up, do you go along with them or just acknowledge them, then try to ignore them and focus on being present? I find there's no real ignoring, or that the process of successfully ignoring can be counterproductive to, like, it can be a source of conflict. And I think the game here is radical peacemaking and keeping included what is, and noticing what reaction you have about it. This is going to die.
Do you have a plug?
Not readily accessible. That's okay. We're sort of wrapping up soonish, but. Yeah, I like what Sicardi said. Kind of both, I think. Like, acknowledging them is part of it. I think, yeah. What would you say?
I think it's kind of like, if you see a mouse in your house, you can either, like, freak out and jump on the table and, like, start screaming there's a mouse, or you can just be like, hi, mouse. And, like, when you have one of the thoughts of work, just like, hi, thought of work. As opposed to, like, work. No, I can't think about that now. Right. No, I'm meditating. I can't think about work.
Right.
So that's kind of the distinction that I use. It's just like, oh, hi. And then if it wants to lead me somewhere, it'll lead me somewhere. But there's no fighting wherever it wants to go.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the things that's like trippy trying to listen and follow to Krishnamurti is this sort of, like, if you're busy trying not to do something, then that's what you're doing. And it's in the way of the freedom that you're seeking. Like, if you're in conflict over trying to get peaceful, you'll never have peace. And so there's this aspect of, can you observe the observer is one of the things he says a lot, where it's like, that voice in your head that's like, oh, I had a thought, don't think that thought. It's like, well, what is that thing that just said that? Is that you? Like, is that what we are, a voice in our head? Or is that just a voice in our head? And maybe that's like part of us, but there's like a much bigger picture of what we really are. It's very complicated to talk about, but I quite enjoy it. Any closing thoughts?
No, I think the only thing is thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Happy Self-Care Sunday.
Yeah, happy Self-Care Sunday.
Before I turn this off, I feel like I would be remiss to not get a closing image of Tiffany. Yeah. So I'll. Oh, this is gonna be tricky.
Can I assist?
I think what you can do is get ready to turn the stream off, but I'm just gonna keep this here for now. Everybody say hi to my sweet sleeping cat. So it's on the YouTube page. Up top, there's a button that says stop streaming.
Okay.
Whoops. We love you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your week. This has been Self-Care Sunday. Thank you to all my patrons who still stick around. I really appreciate it. I feel a little guilty. I haven't been posting much there or posting much anywhere on the internet, but I have been working on myself, and I am interested in focusing on that for the future, the continuing future. I look forward to getting more onto a regular publish on something, but I've mostly been focused on keeping No Bad Ideas going with Gabrielle and Sarah, and that's been enough of a public upload that plus this once a month has felt sustainable. So I just appreciate the understanding and the support, and love you guys. Andrew, you want to do the honors?
Yes.
He's turning it off. Then there's like